Hi and welcome. My name's Campbell, this is Breath Body Therapy, and today we're going to talk about where do I start with breathwork. It's probably one of the most common questions I get as to where to begin. There is an enormous amount of interest in breathwork over the past couple of years, but most important to note is this isn't new. This is a very old practice. It's more or less just been repackaged, and we've got the scientific understanding and that sort of lens that we look through that's really increased the interest and the attention that breathwork's receiving. But with all of these different methods, all of these different practices, all of these different ideas, it can be a little bit overwhelming as to where do I start? Do I start with the Wim Hof method? Do I start with holotropic breathing? Do I start with Buteyko? The list is endless. And each of these practices is going to give you a different outcome or a different benefit. So the first thing I often encourage people to do is, what do you want out of this? Okay, what are you trying to gain from a breathwork practice? Is it improving your sleep? Is it increasing your energy? Is it working through emotional pain and trauma? Is it improving your athletic performance? Because depending on that answer, it will direct you as to where to begin your breathwork practice. And secondarily, ask yourself, what experience do I have? Okay, have I practiced this before? Do I have a pranayama practice from my yoga? Have I been instructed in performance breathing from my coach? Or am I a complete beginner and I have zero understanding of how breath works? Because again, that's a really important point as to where to begin. Once you've sort of come to those two questions, I often get people to start with a simple breath awareness. Because to be frank and to be honest, all of the techniques in the world aren't going to help if you don't become aware of your breath and know when to implement some of these practices. A breathwork practice that takes 30 minutes, okay, is a fraction of your day. And if you're only doing that 30 minutes of conscious breathing and for the other 99% of the day you're completely unaware of your breathing, then you're going to get very limited benefits. Okay, we want to look at this in the sort of bigger picture. And this isn't just a practice on its own that feels really good and has all these benefits, but it should also be a day-to-day, moment-to-moment practice, because a 30-minute practice is not going to help you if for the rest of the time you're breathing really non-optimally for what your desired outcome is. So I often get people to really begin by just becoming aware of their breath. We can do this consciously, and we can do this in certain situations or environments. The sort of 3 points that I like to point to is, number one, how am I breathing? Am I breathing with my nose or my mouth? Okay, if you are at rest, if you're at work, if you are reading your book or the paper or working on something that doesn't require a lot of physical effort, your mouth should be closed. Right? This is where we should always begin. I should be breathing in and out of the nose, unless I'm under quite high intensity of physical activity that is requiring me to breathe in and out through the mouth. So again, perhaps when you're reading your book, take a moment to observe, how am I breathing? When I'm replying to emails or I'm sitting at work, how am I breathing? If you begin to catch yourself breathing through your mouth, then you can begin to change that pattern and come back to nose breathing. Secondly, am I breathing into my chest or my belly? Right? And again, we want to check. So if you just place your hand on your chest, hand on your belly, and take a full breath. It doesn't need to be giant, but a nice full breath. And see what part of you moved. Now, if you felt the shoulders lifted, the chest puffed out, okay, again, we've got a little bit of work to do. At rest, our breath should be down into the lower part of the lungs. Okay, we want to use the diaphragm to create that abdominal expansion, which gives us better delivery of the air coming into the lungs and a better exchange of the blood gases. So secondarily is where I'm breathing, right? Chest or belly. And thirdly, can you hear your breathing? Right? Again, this is more at rest where we spend the majority of our day, but if you take a moment just to sort of press pause on what you're thinking, what you're doing, and you just listen, can you hear your breath? Okay, if you can you can hear your breath coming in and out, you are breathing too hard, you're breathing too heavily. Right? And so the first task is to start to slow the breath down, make that stream of air coming in and out of the nose a little bit more gentle, a little bit quieter, until it's at the point that you can't really hear it. Right? If someone was sitting next to you, they shouldn't be able to hear your breath. So although this isn't a specific breath practice for you to begin with, this is really the foundational principles. You should look to optimize how you breathe at rest throughout the day before you perhaps dive into very specific practices. Maybe you can do them concurrently, because I think an introduction to breathwork, once you do some of these conscious breathing practices, it will give you a bit more of a buy-in, because you feel quite amazing afterwards, in my opinion. And so again, I'd just like to recap. Why do you want to do breathwork? Right? Is it sporting performance? Is it sleep? Is it anxiety? Is it trauma? Right? What has your experience or practice been so far? Are you a complete beginner, or have you practiced this in different settings? And then start to look at, how do I breathe during the day at rest? Right? So check in with yourself. Am I breathing nose or mouth, chest or belly? Is it loud or quiet? Do this when you think of it. You can set an alarm on your phone. You can have a reminder. You can set an association. Maybe every time you get a text message or the phone rings, that's your cue to check on your breathing. But also try and check when you feel certain emotions. So the next time you feel overwhelmed or stressed or anxious, just take a moment to observe how you're breathing. And I can almost guarantee it's going to be a little bit different to how you breathe at rest. The next time you feel super relaxed and there's not a worry in the world, how are you breathing? Because when you start to notice the different respiratory patterns that are associated with different emotional states, then that is a very empowering piece of information, because the way you breathe also affects the way you feel. So if you're feeling stressed and overwhelmed, perhaps you need to breathe like you're relaxed and with not a worry in the world. And that's going to help shift the way that you feel. So I hope this was helpful for your introduction into where do I start with breathwork. If you found it useful, please share and leave a comment below. Subscribe for more videos on breathwork and the benefits. Thanks for joining.